Is this the moment the world stops trusting America? When President Trump announced a shocking 104% tariff on Chinese imports, the world didn't just flinch, it recalculated. Allies were stunned, markets reacted violently, and economists began whispering the one word no country wants to hear: recession. Welcome to TVAI, your source for global news and sharp insight. Today we dive deep into the heart of a global economic storm, one sparked not by war or pandemic, but by a single presidential order. This isn't just about tariffs. It's about leadership, about the fragile threads that connect global economies, and about whether the United States has crossed a line that could change the world order forever. The tariff itself is unprecedented. At 104%, it targets a wide array of Chinese imports, from steel to semiconductors, from basic machinery to consumer electronics. For Trump and his base, it's a show of strength, a bold stance against what they see as decades of economic imbalance and unfair trade. Trump claims it will protect American workers and punish Chinese overreach. But Beijing didn't stay silent. Within 48 hours, China retaliated with tariffs of its own, targeting U.S. agricultural goods and rare earth exports. Chinese media labeled Trump's move as economic aggression, and state officials warned that the U.S. had destroyed the remaining trust between the two economic giants. But here's the twist. The global reaction may be even more telling than China's. Canada expressed serious concern, Germany called for an emergency EU summit, and Japan released a rare joint statement with South Korea urging stability and predictability in international trade. Behind closed doors, diplomatic cables reveal even sharper language. Words like unhinged, erratic, and dangerous being used to describe Washington's new direction. Even staunch U.S. allies are now questioning whether America still values multilateralism or if it's pursuing a new doctrine of economic isolation. Financial markets were rattled. The Dow plunged over 1,200 points in a single day, while Asian and European indices saw multi-day losses. Investment houses like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan revised their growth projections downward, citing uncertainty and volatility. But beyond stocks, it's the deeper tremors that matter. Central banks in emerging economies are scrambling to reassess risk exposure, while oil-producing nations fear a cascading slowdown that could drive demand into the ground. And perhaps most critically, conversations have begun in multiple capitals about alternatives to US-centric trade systems, and even alternatives to the US dollar. Domestically, Trump's decision has reignited old fault lines. Business leaders, including the US Chamber of Commerce, issued stark warnings about inflation and lost competitiveness. Meanwhile, nationalist politicians praised the move as a long-overdue strike against global dependency. The American public, too, is divided. While some applaud Trump for standing up to China, others fear higher prices, job losses, and long-term economic decline. Surveys show rising anxiety about the cost of goods, with middle-class households already feeling the pinch. There's also a geopolitical cost. With the U.S. taking a hardline stance and refusing to consult allies, regional trade blocs are quietly moving ahead without American involvement. Talks are accelerating around the China-led RCEP agreement and an expanded BRICS trade network. Even the EU is considering new trade pathways that bypass Washington entirely. As one European diplomat put it, if the U.S. no longer plays by the rules it helped write, then perhaps it shouldn't be surprised when others write new ones. The bigger question now: has the U.S. passed a point of no return? Is this tariff the first domino in a chain reaction that leads to global fragmentation? Or is it, as Trump insists, the wake-up call the world needed to reset unfair systems and restore balance? This isn't just about economics. It's about trust. And once trust is broken on the international stage, rebuilding it can take decades. Will nations look elsewhere for leadership? Will the dollar lose its dominance? Will the world begin decoupling from American influence, economically and politically? as Washington doubles down. Many question whether this strategy is sustainable in the long term. Analysts note that the 104% tariff is not just economically aggressive, it's politically risky. It risks alienating traditional allies, inflaming domestic inflation, and further deepening the U.S.-China rift at a time when diplomatic cooperation is crucial for global issues like climate change, AI regulation, and international security. Moreover, the long-term fallout may reshape institutions that have defined the modern global economy. The World Trade Organization, already weakened in recent years, now faces another legitimacy crisis. If global leaders begin acting unilaterally, bypassing WTO frameworks, the system that once ensured a degree of predictability in international trade could collapse into fragmented bilateral power plays. Already, nations like India, Brazil, and Indonesia are reassessing their diplomatic positions. Not necessarily to side with China, but to hedge against the instability coming from Washington. The shift is subtle but undeniable. In think tanks and boardrooms, conversations now include terms like multi-alignment, post-dollar diversification, and South-South trade infrastructure. These are not fringe ideas. They're becoming mainstream policy discussions. The irony is striking. Trump's tariff was meant to project strength, to reassert American leadership. But it may be doing the opposite, eroding the very leadership it aims to reclaim. At the same time, China is seizing the opportunity to play the stabilizer. Xi Jinping has called for calm, for open dialogue, for restraint. Whether genuine or tactical, this posture is earning Beijing quiet points in the court of global opinion. Meanwhile, U.S. credibility continues to fray, not just with rivals, but among allies who increasingly fear that American policy is driven more by campaign slogans than long-term strategy. The path forward is uncertain. Will the U.S. backtrack under pressure from Wall Street and international backlash? Will China escalate, potentially cutting off critical materials like rare earth minerals, further destabilizing global supply chains? Or will a new trade détente be negotiated, one that salvages cooperation before fractures become irreversible? What do you think? Has Trump taken a necessary stand for U.S. sovereignty, or has he triggered a global backlash that could weaken America's place in the world for generations? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading them all. This story is still unfolding, and your perspective might be the one that needs to be heard. Stay tuned with TVAI, where the world watches the truth unfold.